You said last week I hosted my very first retreat. Had I ever attended a retreat? No. Did I work with a coach or experienced retreat host to guide me through the process? No. I created the retreat that I would want to attend. So
Yes.
I want to hear all about it. Because I was gonna go. Actually, I was checking out and I was like, I don't know if I can do this because I was coming off of a trip that I had taken late December, and then I am gone like all of February. Like conference season, this is conference season for us, and it is chaos, utter chaos around here. And so um I couldn't pull the trigger. I wanted to, but I couldn't.
Yeah. Oh, you would have loved it. It was such a good time. The past, so I've been doing business coaching. I've been doing educating since 2017. And then right around COVID, actually it was COVID that kind of forced everyone to like try and figure out what they were going to do. And like I had lots and lots of experience in leadership. I had a master's degree in business from Cornell. So I was uniquely qualified to kind of help people from the business strategy perspective to kind of pivot. And so I started doing one-on-one coaching and group coaching in 2020. And then as soon as doors opened up to the world again, I started doing in-person events and fell in love with just the ability to kind of bring people together and gather. And you saw one of those events when you joined us for camp back in
Yeah.
2023, I believe.
Is
And
that what that was?
I know, I know. And we meant to do one in 2024, but then about 100 days, 120 days before our event date, the venue said they had permitting issues and they had to cancel and pull out. And as you may
Mm.
know, if you've ever planned an event, the venue is the most important part, and it's the part that takes the longest to like source and like figure out vendors for. So we were going to have to start from scratch. And so we really
Yeah.
just sit in 2024 with, okay, back to the drawing board. We have an entire year to plan something. What do we want to look, what do we want it to look like? And we look back through all of the events that we had done, and we had done both multi-day conferences, like the one that you attended, and we'd also done single-day workshops, and we had hosted those all over the country. So we've done Santa Barbara, we did Dallas, we did Denver, we did DC, we did Nashville. We've been to a bunch of different places to do single-day workshops. And the feedback that we were getting was that the information was amazing. They wanted more time, both with the information, but
Mm.
with each other. And so we knew we wanted it to be multi-day. We knew we wanted it to be a bit more intimate because the in-person workshops that we had done, the single days, were maybe max 15 people because we were just like in like workspace, like co-working spaces. Um, and so we started from that. And then I started to look at, okay, I have done a ton of research since starting to coach around psychology, how the brain works, how adults learn, how they connect, how they retain information, how to structure information. And that required, in my mind, intentionality around event design. So I knew that from that perspective, every kind of session, every transition, every pause to do group work had to be intentional and for a reason and with a specific goal for every moment. And it wasn't until like 2 days before we took off to go to Puerto Rico, which is where the event was, that I realized like I had never been to a retreat. I wasn't sure what they were supposed to look like. And it
Yeah.
never occurred to me to even attend one to like take notes. And so I had this moment
Yeah.
of real imposter syndrome where I was like, oh, darn it, should I have done that? And I brought it to my sister at the time, and she said, no, I think that you just inherently have a natural way of like understanding how these things should work. And it's not like I've never done an event, as you know, like we've done a number of events. We'd never done one so for so many days with such intimacy and with me being the only educator. Like I led the all the sessions, and each session kind of built upon the session before it. And the goal of the entire workshop it's called B.R.E.W, and it is the Business Revitalization and Empowerment Workshop. And the tagline is sun, sand, and a plan. So everybody walked out of there with their annual strategy for what to be implementing
Okay.
in 2025. But we start with the why. Why are you planning these things? Where are you trying to go? Because sometimes people have goals, and then when you look at them, you're like, well, who, why? Does this align with the bigger vision that you have? Um, and so it had a lot of components in it, and some of them feel kind of fun, but they were super intentional. So the first day, not the welcome happy hour, but the very first day, we spent the first 4 hours in vision. And by that, it's kind of like the subconscious mind is a big driver of what we do. I don't know if most people know this, but like 90 to 90% of the thoughts you have today, you had yesterday. So we have very
Mhm.
specific patterns and stories. And so the world that you live in and the results that you have currently in your life are the result of the patterns and the stories that you play. And in business, this is where, as a coach, I oftentimes kind of come up against resistance because change is hard. Change requires your conscious mind to break away from the patterns and the routines and to do something differently so that you can get different results. But oftentimes, because your patterns and stories are subconscious, means they're not conscious to you. People can't see them. And so they don't know what changes to make to get the results that they need. And so day one was really an opportunity for us to kind of hold up a mirror and do some of that work. And we did that through a number of different exercises. But one of them was a eulogy. We asked everyone to write their eulogy.
Mm.
And that was
Okay.
such a powerful exercise. And like some people were crying while they were writing it. Some people had like totally froze and they didn't know what to write because they'd never thought about
Yeah.
what legacy am I trying to build with my business and my
Yeah.
life. And so that was so, so powerful. But then the second half of the day, we went to cabanas and we had drinks and we danced and we connected and we like talked to each other and we really built this kind of depth of intimacy, which was super important to build upon because the next day is when we started putting the pedal to the metal. That's where we started doing the strategy. That's where we started like really digging into like the goals, the action items, the tasks. And then the second part of that day was where everybody was in tears, and not because they were bored or because it was really hard, but because we really dug into if you could have done all of these things currently, you would have. So, what has held you back from accomplishing these things? And it's usually some, we call them dragons, that it's like fear. They're scared of something, whether it's to be too big. Some people are like, if I get any bigger, I'll have to build a team. I've never had a team before. Or, some people are like, if I make $200,000 this year, I don't know how to manage that much money. I've never had that much money to manage, right? And so it's like a
Yeah.
good problem to have, but it's still a scary problem to have. And so we got to work through some of that. And that work wouldn't have been possible without building the relationships and the connections and the vulnerability that we did on day one. So, anyways, it was just an absolutely amazing time. And I couldn't have planned for it to go better. The feedback has been amazing, and I can't wait to do it again.
Where are you coming up with your ideas, like with the eulogy and the like the structure of all of this? Like, is this something that you dove into research prior to setting it up, or is this something that you've known, or is this a continual educational thing for you?
All of the above. Yeah. So I did a ton of reading and research last year on buyer psychology and neuroscience and how the brain works.
Okay.
There's a number of different books and podcasts. Brainy Biz, the Brainy Biz is one of my favorite buyer psychology podcasts that I like to listen to. There's an exceptional book called The Experience Machine by Andy Clark that talks about how the brain perceives things. There's a really wonderful book called Alchemy,
Mm,
um,
in that one.
which is by Rory Sutherland. And that talks about, again, like buyer psychology, how people make decisions, um, and just psychology in general. Having coached for the years that I have, you start to see patterns and you start to see like
Yeah.
what works and what doesn't, and how like you can't just jump right in with someone and start seeing
Yeah.
change. You really have to build safety and you have to build trust in those relationships before they're willing to be led to make change. So yeah, it's just kind of a culmination of all the things.
Yeah, and it's gonna be genuine too. Like my mind goes to some of the books I've read by like Simon Sinek and um, I follow Andrew Huberman on. He dives deep into some of the neuroscience stuff, and he gets very scientific, and it's hard to follow sometimes. But like, I love the way that he approaches some of the stuff, the way that our brain works, and like Alex Hermosi on the selling, and like I eat that stuff up. Like I just consume that kind of stuff, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to take a lot of cues from the more scientific community. So I have heard of Andrew Huberman before. I know of Alex Hermosi. I know of Simon Sinek. A lot of what they talk about in their platforms are just kind of repackaged mindset stuff that has been, front and center for a great number of years. They're just very charismatic people and they have their own kind of like take on it. I
Yeah.
think it's important for me, not necessarily for them, right? Because they're just trying to inspire people to do things. For me, my mission in the world is to get people to understand why we do things. And so when I teach when I was teaching at Brew, I would tell everybody why we were doing a certain exercise and how it impacts their like brain and their thinking and how perception and that can be altered, but why it's so hard to alter it, right? And so when we're talking about accountability,
Yeah.
which is one of the things that I like to talk about, like I go through why is accountability important? What are the best ways that accountability works for you, but like in general, why is it hard? Why is it like, it's so easy? Like, one of my favorite quotes, and I can't remember who said it, was like, it's the easiest thing in the world to quit smoking. I've done it 1,200 times, right? And so, like,
Right. Right.
these human things, I think it's important for people to understand you're not broken if things are hard. This is why it's hard. These are some like hacks or cheat codes that we can use to try and make it a little bit easier, but that ultimately we do the things that we do because it's totally natural for us to be doing it that way. Like we're working against our biology, and almost every time we're trying to grow outside of ourselves. And so for me, one of my biggest things is that I want people to understand why we're doing a certain thing and why we're doing it, where
Yeah.
we're doing it, so that they can then take it away and do it themselves.
Now, when you were running the brew, did you do a eulogy as well? Were you doing the exercises with them?
I had done the exercise beforehand, so I wanted to see,
Okay.
is it a good fit? Was it a good exercise? And I have a um my partner in crime, her name is Dawn, and we actually went to her hometown in Brevard, North Carolina for an entire weekend to sit down and like talk in depth about, okay, these are the time blocks that we have. What do we want to cover? What exercises will allow us to, one, engage the conscious mind, the logic mind, two, engage the subconscious mind, the emotional body. And so our exercises were a direct reflection of how we wanted people to feel, what we wanted people to know, and what we wanted them to do or take away. And we just kind of went through every single piece of that engagement, that event, with those three questions. And we teach this is that the first time I taught this kind of methodology was last year in Nashville. I had a full day workshop where we talked about wooing the premium buyer. And it's all about creating the client experience from first touch point to kind of last touch point. And with intentionality, every time someone comes in contact with you, whether it's on your Instagram, whether it's via email, whether it's landing on your website, what do you want them to know? What do you want them to feel? And what do you want them to do now? It's just a basic framework.
You wrote that your word for the year is intimacy, and that you're going to work hard to bring back the intimacy and the community connection that the Mobile Bev Pros Facebook group was once known for. When you posted that, it was very timely on my end because when I reached out to you to see if you wanted to sit down with me, a lot of it was, oh hey, what's Sarah been up to? I don't think I've heard from her in a while or I've seen her because we follow all the all the Mobile Bev Pros and the mobile bar Facebook groups, and not that you disappeared, but it was like you took a step back. And when I was researching Brew, it seemed to be more focused on small business, not necessarily owning a mobile bar. And I know that you had added coffee into the Mobile Bev Pros page. So where are you now and where are you heading as far as that is concerned? And do you think you've tapped the mobile bar market and you're trying to expand your reach as a coach?
I don't know that the mobile bar community has been tapped. I will say that as a coach, I have fallen in love with a very specific piece of what I do and did for the mobile bar community that is not industry specific. It's
Okay.
industry agnostic. And so last year in 2024, so 2023, we showed up balls to the wall and we tried all the things. And I burnt myself all the way out. By
Mm.
the end of 2023, I was like an empty vessel. And I had no energy and no creativity and no desire or drive to do really anything because there was nothing left. And so creativity is cyclical in the fact that you need to give it space for it to have a place to live and to exist. And so in 2024, I stepped way back. I focused a lot on my one-on-one coaching clients. I focused a lot on my group coaching clients, and I started doing coaching and education outside of the mobile bar industry through the Cayuga Forum, which is specific to entrepreneurs that graduated from Cornell. And so I was a pod leader there, and I was doing a lot of coaching for industries that are well outside. I'm talking like PR and selling toilet paper and like all sorts of crazy, not crazy, but like just not, in the niche that I had really curated. And it demonstrated to me that the problems that people have in the mobile bar industry are the same problems that business owners have like far and wide, and that the
Yeah.
medicine that I have doesn't necessarily need to live within the mobile bar space alone, and that the parts that I loved the most was about helping people make that transition from starting a business and like the hustle and the grind to positioning themselves in the premium markets, because the
Mhm.
premium markets, especially in events, you're working with people who are less price sensitive. So they're not line item, assessing every single thing that you're trying to charge them. They're
Yeah.
focused on experience, which a lot of people get into the mobile bar industry for that reason, because they want to focus on the experience and the craft cocktails and the fancy garnishes and the bespoke events. But they have a hard time making the transition from mid-market, where that all feels very expensive, to the premium market, where price is less of the concern. It's more about how are you communicating value. And the premium market does that in a number of different ways. And they do it emotionally, they do it through imagery, they do it through word choice and messaging, they do it through kind of service signaling. So you would talk to them differently when you were serving them. You would include things that others might include as like an upcharge. And so you just operate differently. And during my time in coaching the mobile bar space, that's where I saw the most amount of frustration and friction as people would come into the industry, they would start the business and they would want those high-end events. They would want the corporate events. They would want the like luxury weddings where people weren't like penny pinching as much, but they
Yeah.
didn't know how to make that leap from, here's my itemized invoice to they didn't even balk. They just signed and paid, right? And so
Yeah.
I love teaching people how to go from here to there. And it turns out that it's not unique to the events industry, that people in PR have the same challenges, and that people selling toilet paper that are made out of bamboo, they can't sell toilet paper the same way Charmin does. And so they have to
Yeah.
like do it from a more premium perspective, which means you're value signaling instead of, look how cheap I can make this, right? So I
Yeah.
love being there.
Yeah, and there's almost like an attitude behind it too, where when you've got the confidence to sell something that's got a higher price tag, and actually just getting out of your own way and understanding that there are other people out there that have different price points. And just because I wouldn't spend $1,000 on a jockey box doesn't mean that Bell's isn't going to call me and order 30 of them and write me a check tomorrow. There's a mindset shift when you go from being an employee making 40, $50,000 a year to sending a 30 or $40,000 invoice. There's a mindset shift in there that kind of got to get over. And that's hard for people. That was hard for us right away. You know, when we were small and it was just Boyd and I together, like it takes a second.
It does. The key to all of that is confidence. And so one of the things I
Yeah.
like that is that confidence competence wheel. When you're spending out of your, or when you're buying, spending, selling, when you're selling from your own pocket, you look at that invoice and say, this is crazy. Like, I
Hmm.
would not pay for this. And I always joke that, with mobile bars, when they get started, they always think that their friends and family are their ideal client, only to realize that generally their friends and family can't afford them and that they probably can't afford themselves either. And so that's
And they
where
want a deal.
and they want the friends and family deal. Exactly that, right? And we teach that if your friends and family want to support you, they should pay extra, right? They should know your
Yep.
value and understand your value and want to support you in your success and therefore pay every single dime because most people are already undercharging, especially when they get started. But we have
Yep.
this thing that we love to reference called the competence wheel. And so you can only successfully sell something if you're confident in what you're selling, and I don't mean the product, I mean the price. So if you are confident in sending that $30,000 invoice, then the client will be more confident too. If you're not confident, you're going to struggle to sell at that price point. And so we always tell people to start with pricing where they have the most amount of confidence. And sometimes that is so far below where they need to be or should be charging, but they need proof that they can sell at that rate. And then they can bump it a little bit, and then they have someone book them at that rate, and then they build confidence that they can do it at that rate. And you can just like baby step your way up because the confidence then breeds competence. The confidence breeds
Yep.
confidence, right? And so it's a nice little wheel that unfortunately some people only get through experience. They only get through external validation that they were worth it. And once you have that, things get a whole lot easier. Now, you're not required to start on that wheel. Some people, and I like to give this example, if you come from a wealthy background, maybe you have a trust fund or but you were raised where like dropping $10,000 on a bar for an event just wasn't a big deal, then you can immediately enter the mobile bar space and start invoicing at that rate and like not have a problem. But if you don't have that confidence, a $10,000 invoice is going to seem crazy to you. And so you
Yeah.
don't have to build up the confidence. It really comes from your personal experience and your personal lens as to where you are on that competence scale.
Yes. And the farther you get into it, the easier it is to tell people you're not my customer. Sorry. Um, if if our price point is beyond what you can afford, we're not your customer. And no, I'm not going to give you a discount. You know, I probably send an email a day of people looking for a discount. And I say, we don't play the price game. Our prices are what they are. Our prices don't go up and down throughout the year. And we don't play that game. And I feel like that's fair. So if you're buying on December 10th, it's the same price that it is on June 6th, right? We don't, it doesn't go up and down. And I'm okay telling people that.
Absolutely. I think that you have to have a sales strategy.
Hmm.
And oftentimes, especially in mid-market, you will see certain triggers or levers, as I like to call them, to encourage people to take action. If there aren't any incentives to take action, you often won't. Just as a human, we're like, I can just buy my cold break whenever. And so for you guys, you might find that people will, and I'm going to speak for myself, when I bought two of y'all's jockey boxes or jumper boxes, it was
Hmm.
because I had finished a build and that was the best solution for the problem that I had within my mobile bar. So you didn't need to inspire me to take action. That my circumstances inspired me to take action. It might also be that they book an event and it's like a festival and now they need to keep beer cold at multiple. And so that is the trigger that causes
Yes.
to take action. If
Yep.
you are a mobile bar and you are in a very saturated market, which, there's, I'll take Dallas, for example, there's at least 80 mobile bars in that area. And oftentimes they are very similar in quality, similar in price. There's a lot of similarities, right? you might need to pull some other levers to get people to take action and book with you. And so those that might look like a discount, it might look like a value add, it might look like a limited time deal, it might look like all sorts of things. You need to know what your strategy is and the market that you're going after. So a great example that I love to use is Yeti. I'm a Yeti girl. I am always drinking from a Yeti, whether it's coffee, whether it's water, whatever it is. I just love their products. They
Hmm.
very rarely run sales, and but they have other levers. They have limited time colors. They have limited runs of certain designs. And so that's another lever, right? You get it now or you don't get it at all because it's going to be
Yeah.
gone if you don't, right? So a sales strategy, if you don't want to do discounts and you don't want to play on price, then you have to know what the levers are that you have or what the industry that you're in creates urgency or yeah, I'm going to say just stop it. Creates urgency. And in your case,
Yeah.
it could be just that you're in an industry where people are triggered to have to buy a thing. And I don't know, do you guys do
No, you
limited runs of things? Do you?
yeah, we do limited runs on colors every once in a while on the coolers themselves. You nailed it. Um, when you need a jockey box, you need a jockey box, and it's either people call us and say, "Hey, I'm in the middle of a build. I placed an order. I don't really care when it ships, because sometimes I'll ask." And then the other ones are like, "Hey, I need a jockey box tomorrow. Can you fulfill that?" And we know it, and our guys know it in the warehouse. If there's a rush on an order, that means they're like they've either waited too long and they forgot about it, or they've booked another festival and they're back to back and they need to send another person. So it's because sometimes the local brewery will need 8 jockey boxes because there's 3 or 4 events going on at the same time, and they've got a beer tent going on, and so it's you nailed it.
And so you could play with that, knowing what you know about what triggers people to buy your jockey boxes. You can reduce friction and increase client satisfaction by doing things like, and I don't know what your shipping costs look like, but maybe you have flat rate overnight shipping. And then like that becomes a thing where I know I can always get a jockey box from Cold Break within 48 hours for the like low overnight shipping rate of X, right? And so like when you know what people's triggers are to buy, you can use those triggers to foster retention, raving fans, and you can decrease friction, right? So if I needed something overnight, I might just be like, oh my gosh, it's going to cost me an arm and a leg, right? And then
Mm.
you share with me that like actually we have reduced pricing for repeat clients on, expedited shipping. And suddenly I'm like,
Yeah.
Cold Break USA, man, saviors, love them, and you guys already have a ton of good cred in our industry. So it's not like you necessarily need to earn that. But there's those little things, right? I think it was LL
Yeah.
Bean um, or Patagonia that has like a lifetime warranty. You could take it back at any point. And like
Yeah.
you build raving fans from that. Like people will just like be ride or die forever when you create policies that support the way that they buy.
Talk to me about your relationship with Dawn and how you guys interact with each other. How you guys work together.
I mean, we are probably the epitome of like yin and yang. And we first met when I was running my mobile bar. Mobile Bev Pros had exploded, and I was simultaneously running two multi-six-figure businesses as a solopreneur. So I was losing my mind, and I felt like something needed to give, but I wasn't quite sure what it was. I also had two small children, like 3 and under, 4 and under at the time. And so I hired her as a coach and she's not a business coach. She is kind of just a mindset, metaphysical. I could never create words sufficient to explain what she does and who she is. But I was looking for clarity and she told me she could give it to me. And I was like, I'm all in because I will likely die if I don't. And we spent 6 intense months of her just reflecting back to me every story I was telling myself that was creating the reality that I was living. and giving me clarity around where I could make different choices. And at the end of that 6 months, I had sold Bar Magnolia. I had gone all in on mobile Bev Pros. We'd seen a huge increase in revenue, but we'd also seen a huge increase in the level of support and the results that my clients were getting. And I just, for the first time, felt like I had head above water.
Mhm.
And then we just kind of transitioned into like friend zone and the fact that like, we would send each other messages sometimes. We would send each other like social media stuff. And I was sharing with her that I kept trying to find a number two for mobile Bev Pros. And it was just one disappointment after another. And I have been a solid leader for many years. I know how to hire, train, all the things. I just felt like I was looking for a unicorn. And she kind of offered to work for me. And I was like, haha, tee, that's so funny. Like you have your own business. And she said that she thought she could learn a lot from me. And I was like, all right, let's give it a try. Best decision I ever made. She's amazing at what she does. Her official title is COO and Chief Alchemist. But like as we have worked together over the years, we realize that what we bring to the table complements each other so much. I bring strategy and structure and like depth of I love my favorite thing in the world is to take really complex concepts and digest them into frameworks that can be easily taught and easily understood. So I teach lots of concepts every day to mobile bar owners, big business concepts that maybe I spent years learning. And I'm like, here's a 30-minute lesson on how to implement this in your business, right? So I'm the shortcut
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
for people in business. And she brings kind of all of the squishy stuff, right? So like if we were to look at conscious and unconscious, if we were to look at logic and methodology and mindset, when we work together, people get both sides. And so it's just that much more effective. It's like I don't know why this is coming to me, but when you eat an apple, or you drink apple juice, when you drink apple juice, like your insulin shoots way up, right? But if you eat the apple, because the fiber is built in, it doesn't have that same impact on your body. It just your body treats it differently and it's better. It's healthier to eat the apple. And I just feel like
Yeah.
we together are healthier for our clients because we are engaging the entire experience when we work together. So, yeah, she's the best thing that has ever happened to my business. She's my best friend. And we work really well together. We grow together. We are just always learning together and exchanging ideas. Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun the last 3 years now.
So talk to me about your plans, the two of you, for 2025.
Yeah. So, no shortage of big things on the docket this year. We are going to gather a couple more times. We are going to plan a leadership workshop probably in the summer. And that comes from Brew, where we really could see a pattern that people who attended Brew and feedback from kind of our group coaching clients and one-on-one coaching clients is that leadership is something that not everybody who comes into entrepreneurship has. And so when they get their business to a place where they need to start building a team, holding people accountable, building processes around hiring and onboarding, they're kind of moving through the dark there.
Mhm.
And how communication, when issues arise, like maybe your bartender's drinking on the job, or maybe one of your bartenders or employees like said a thing to a client that now they're upset about how to handle those situations. And Don and I live there. We love that. We believe that leadership starts with leading yourself. And so we do a lot of one-on-one work with building confidence and increasing people's ability to like hold power and be accountable to themselves. And then they can kind of lead others from that kind of seat of confidence. And so we're going to do a workshop on that. And then we'll do another workshop on marketing and sales so that people can, and we'll probably do that at the end of the year so that people are better at like marketing and messaging and then converting the leads that they get. So that is on the docket. I'm also completely redesigning the Mobile Bar Academy, which the Mobile Bar Academy is my baby.
Mhm.
And I launched it in like 2018, 2019, and we've just been adding and adding and adding and adding ever since then. It is super comprehensive. It is amazing. There's not a single person that gets in there that is like, nope, this didn't work. If people cancel or like leave, it's usually like, I'll be back, or, we're 4 years in, we use this a ton, and now we're, really hitting a stride and we just don't use it as much. And I look at it and I'm like, I could have done this better. I can do this now better because I have 5 years of experience, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I don't like to create things and then let them go stale. I mean, there are a lot of
Yeah.
things I'll just create and like it's dead to me. But the Mobile Bar Academy has never been that thing. So I'm going through re-recording all the lessons, taking out anything that feels kind of superfluous or maybe confusing, and then adding a lot of the things that I found over the past couple of years that have really like hit home. Like when you teach a thing over and over and over again, and like it doesn't land, and suddenly it lands, you're like, okay, that's how I need to be teaching it. So there's a lot of that
Yeah.
going.
It's like a comedian rehearsing
Matt, yes,
their
exactly.
jokes, you know. Yeah. My brain goes back to our website when you talk like that. Like I do our website and I'm like, oh, that product page could be better, or that video could have been better. I need to redo that video. Like it's got the basics behind it, but it's missing this, this, and this. And then I'm sure for you guys, like, as trends change throughout the years, I'm sure it's completely different now than it was in 2018 when you guys first started recording and giving information away, or presenting it, that it's probably completely different now.
I am not one for trends. Even my wardrobe looks very much the same as it did 20 years ago because I'm actually got the Steve Jobs vibe going today with the black turtleneck. Um,
Hey, I'm in a black t-shirt every day, so I don't ever have to think about what I'm doing. It's a black t-shirt.
you've got the Steve Jobs thing going on too.
Yeah.
So, as far as trends go, I think my content has always very intentionally avoided that. I say the closest thing that I have gotten to trying to accommodate a trend would be the transition last year into the realm of AI. And that was I'm a techie just by nature. And so I
Mm.
was playing around with it anyways. And at first, people were trying to use it for everything. And so I kind of jumped in and was like, here's the best ways to use it. Here's the worst ways to use it.
Yeah.
And probably the closest thing that I would say that we have in the academy that's kind of trendy. I avoid things like there were the champagne walls were a big trend at one point, and that maybe they kind of are still now, but I haven't seen as many of them recently because they are a beast to manage. Like we didn't teach people how to build them or how to do them. Maybe the kegging of cocktails. I mean, we do have lessons of that, but I don't think that's going anywhere. That's just like an operational reality. So,
Yeah. When you undertake the adventure of learning to know thyself, you get the benefit of truly claiming what you are really fucking good at.
yeah, listen, I doubt I'm alone in the process of self-discovery. But as an entrepreneur, you kind of move through the world in a way where you're constantly asking yourself, am I being of the highest service? And how do I best add value to the world around me? Whether it's slinging drinks, whether it's selling toilet paper, whether it's writing press releases, right? And like, what am I uniquely suited for? Some people call this purpose, right? I believe you kind of give yourself purpose, but I do think that there is this process of self-discovery wherein we have to look at ourselves and say, I've spent 42 years deciding what I like, what I don't like, what I'm good at, what I'm not very good at. What do I enjoy doing? What do I hate doing? And how do people receive me? So when I talk, it's funny because Dawn and I might say the same thing, and people will hear certain things from her in a way that like they didn't just hear that come out of my mouth 5 minutes ago. I'm like, what? How did it resonate when you said it? But then I'll say something and Dawn will say something and people will take it from me. And it just really depends on like what it is that I'm saying. And I honestly think that looking out at the world and seeing like what you like, but then also what do people like from you? And I have a ton of data points here because I've been speaking into the void in the business community online and in person since 2017. And before that, I was in office capacity, right? Working is in senior leadership for large companies and tech and otherwise. And so I have a lot of data points, and everyone does. You have a lot of data points in your life as to like what you like, what you don't, and what people like from you. And so when you're paying attention, some people just aren't paying attention to those things. But I've spent the last couple of years really paying attention to like, where am I making the biggest impact? And when I teach a thing, what are people asking more of when I do that? And I know that for one thing, I'm a teacher. That's just
Mhm.
who I am. It's funny, both my sisters are also teachers, but they teach like children and like gross. I love teaching adults because people adults only come to you when they want to learn something. Like
Yeah.
they're otherwise not there. Um, and so I know that I'm a teacher. So like, what do people want to learn from me? And then and sometimes I'll teach a thing, a subject, but that's not at all what they take away. And so what I have realized about the work that I do in the world is that first and foremost, I enable people to stand really firmly in their seat of power. And that's confident. You can do almost anything when you're confident about it. And there's all sorts of stories that will prove it. If you ever have watched or read Catch Me If You Can, Confidence Man, that's all it is. It's confidence. You can do amazing things, both in shadow and light, from the seat of confidence. And so many people have a lack of confidence. So if we can just get them in their seat of confidence first, they can do amazing things and they can get amazing results. And I'm uniquely suited to do that. And like, there's just a number of other things that I think for me, if I now that I know that there's like three specific things that are my work in the world, that I can just focus on doing more of those three things. And so my impact will be greater. And so instead of taking 20 steps in 20 different directions, I get to take 20 steps in one direction.
Yeah, it's almost learning to listen to your that inner voice that you have too, because it's there and it's guiding us, telling us what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, and it's easy for us to ignore it or push it aside and do something different. When we've got some downtime and your brain's like, you should be making a video, or you should be interviewing, or you should be answering that email.
Yeah, one of the things that I teach is that the most valuable asset that you have isn't time. I actually teach a concept called time bending. But it's your attention. And so wherever you're spending your attention or applying your attention, you will see it grow or
Mm.
expand. And if it's Netflix,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you see your list of shows expand, and you will see not only that, you will see because there's subtle programming in everything that you watch. And it's not that like you can logically say, oh, I see what they're trying. This is the theme, or this is, but subconsciously, your brain is taking everything in. And
Yeah.
it's really important to just be careful of what you consume. And that's books, that's conversations, it's people that are in the room, right? When people say that you're the result of the five people you spend the most time with, they're not kidding. Like science
Yeah.
shows that. And
Yep.
so I really advocate for people to be very intentional about everything that they have in their world that they're spending time paying attention to.
Yes. And ignoring or delegating the things that are grabbing your attention that isn't moving your business or life forward into a better place. And I've been struggling with this for the past, I don't know, 6 months. It's been driving me nuts. That I actually made a list. I made a list the other day of all of the, let me pull it up here, of all of the programs that I have to learn how to navigate. And it was our website, it was Amazon, TikTok Shop, the Google, all of the Google suites, the business, the ads, the accounting software, the banking software, the payroll information, tax filing websites, our inventory management program, our accounts payable program, our my workflow, so Monday or Trello, our influencer program, graphic Canva, the graphic design, all of the social media accounts, um, my cloud, how we keep everything on like all the storage stuff, like our conference websites. And then because I do a lot of our long form content, like iMovie and YouTube and Ecamm, like all of these programs that I have to learn how to do and navigate. that I can't delegate at the moment because we're a small business still. And like it's driving me nuts because I joke with Boyd that I spend half my day logging into these websites and going through two-factor authentication. And if I walk away from my phone for 5 minutes, something on my computer or somebody else's computer says, "No, nope, you can't walk away from your phone. Go back to it or go grab it so I can send you a code." And I'm logging in and everything. And it pulls me away from the things that I really want to be doing, like this, the long form content, providing value to our customers and people that respect us in the industry, and just providing some sort of value for everybody and being content creators versus content consumers. This is what's going to drive us forward. And there are things in business that pull you in different directions. And that's what I'm trying to navigate. And that's what I'm struggling with at the moment.
And if you were one of my clients, what I would likely do is I would look at that list and I would say which of those things are producing the results that are in alignment with your goals. And so you mentioned that long form content is something that you're passionate about and you think that's the direction, right? I also love long form content because it builds intimacy. And I
Yeah.
know that to be true because there is proof in my field when we show up at Brew, or if I ever get someone on a discovery call and they fangirl out and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're a real person. You're in my ear all the time. I love your podcast." Like that's a one-way intimacy because
Yeah.
they've spent hours with me over time,
Yep.
right? And so we have an intimacy is like golden, not only because it reminds us as creators that like what we do is resonating with people and it's of value, but because we are then building that know, like, and trust factor with a form that we enjoy creating. And also, not all forms of media have the same return. What's challenging is that you look out in the world, and for every media platform, and not just social media, but blogging, all the whole nine yards, there will be people out there that said, you have to have it. It's literally what made my business, etc. Right. And then for every single one of those, you're going to see someone who's hugely successful that doesn't show up at all on that platform. Right. And
Yeah.
so you can do all of the things, but you can't do them all well, especially as one person. Right. So I
Right.
always recommend that people choose one to two, ideally, I call it a hero platform, potentially a secondary that you know that your ideal client is on, and you just do that. And Neil Patel shared a statistic the other day. He's like a marketing guy, and he had like a whole ass graph. And he said that there was like a study done on large companies that were very much like involved in social media, and they stopped doing social media. And the graph was the impact on sales. And within a year, I think it was a year, the sales had declined 6% from doing zero social media,
Hmm.
zero organic social media. And the point he was making was that if you stop doing social media, your business will suffer because you'll lose 6% of revenue. And like, you don't want that. And all of the comments, which I love because I hear this from businesses all the time, they're like, I would happily give up 6% of my revenue to never have to be on social media again. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And others were making the argument that like I spend more than 6% of my revenue just creating content and being on all of these social media platforms. And so like I'd be saving more than I'm spending on these things.
Yeah.
But we feel like we have to be in all the places. And we gave ourselves permission at the beginning of 2024 to be podcast first, which means that we create podcasts and then that podcast can birth emails, it can birth other content. If we want to post about it on social media, we will, but no pressure to do that. Because what we have found is that our highest quality customers are podcast listeners.
Hmm.
And so they may have found us in other places like social media or whatever, but if we point them to the podcast, they will show up and spend more money at in-person events. They will invest in our programming, and they will come to places like Brew, which was like a $2,000 minimum dollar investment. So we want more of that. We don't want just more clients. We want more of the clients that like it's a two-way relationship, right?
Yeah.
And so intentionally, we have restricted how we show up. And we tried all the things. We paid for social media. We put, I think, $24,000 into social media management in 2023 and saw no uptick in revenue. We actually did no social media last year other than like the random whatever. And we were the same revenue as the year before. So it really just comes down to like what's actually moving the needle.
Yeah, I think it depends on your business as well. It might be a little harder on the service side of things. You know, the long form content also gives you that intimacy that you're talking about with your customers, but it also gives you stuff to pull from for social media, right? So this long form content provides a lot of great information just to pull to whether it's Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. You know, if you're creating this content, it's easier. But also like if you're more product focused like we are, you know, when Boyd does the TikTok videos, like we've divided and conquered too, right? So I do a lot of the YouTube stuff. I do a lot of our product videos. Boyd does more TikTok and Instagram. But from the product side of things, like we've seen more return from TikTok because we've got videos on there that have gone 3 million views. We'll sell out the cold one over some dumb video that we didn't even think would go viral, and then we're screwed for a while on inventory, and then like, you know, so we see both sides of things.
And so like I would just go all in on TikTok. You know what I mean? If that's what's producing the results for
Yeah.
you, then like go all in on that. Instead of trying to spread yourself super thin across all platforms. And I also think that, and like this is an outside perspective, I think one of the things that Cold Break has going for it is your referral network. Now, you guys don't have a referral program, so there's really no incentive for people to kind of lean into that. But as far as like our industry, Cold Break USA is the recommendation, the recommendation. If you ask for a jockey box solution in the mobile beverage community, like it'll be Cold Break USA, Cold Break USA, Cold Break USA, right? You
Yeah.
guys are the recommendation. And so knowing that about your sources of sales, like lean in, right? So like, and it doesn't have to be a discount. It doesn't have to, but maybe they get points towards their own next jockey box, or maybe you guys send
Yeah.
them a sticker for their own jockey box, or like you can get creative as to how you can reward people for being your sales team uncompensated. And that looks like kind of building a little team of raving fans. What are the rewards for being a part of this insider club of like Cold Break USA fans? And
Yeah.
worth it, right? Because you guys have a great
Yep.
reputation and people are doing it anyways. And when people love brands, they love, like I am a Yeti advocate. I I
Yep.
buy Yetis for all of my clients when I'm doing appreciation gifts. I'm carrying them everywhere. I want all the colors. And so, you know, those that love you want to demonstrate that, whether it's through continuing to buy your products, maybe wearing a t-shirt, having like you can do little things to reward people for recommending.
Yeah, we like sending gifts. Especially if we screw up, you know, we'll throw a T-shirt in there or a tin tacker or something. We like throwing a little extra stuff in there. You know, it goes back to customer service too. You know, we try, right? You're getting if you email us or call us, you're going to get a human being that knows what they're talking about, and you're going to get a human response. And I don't ever want that to go away. You know.
Well, with intentionality, it won't, right? I mean, one of
Yep.
my favorite things to reference about like this is Costco. So Costco has a very long history of being who they are and supporting their employees how they do, and they have a very strong company culture. And when the CEO decided that they wanted to retire, they picked a person who had been an employee that started off as like a forklift driver, like one of those little drivers, and had been with the company, but they didn't just like transition. He spent years learning the job of the CEO so that when the CEO stepped down, the new CEO understood the culture, wasn't going to make decisions like we're raising the price of the hot dog because like the boardroom says so, right? They like truly understood the culture and why they did things the way that they did. And so
Yeah.
you get to pick and choose the parts of your culture that remain.
What do you struggle with on your end?
Last year, my word was clarity. So this year is intimacy, and last
Mm.
year was clarity. There are so many options at all times as to like where you could spend your attention, your time, how you can create value. And clarity was what I felt last year to be the biggest hurdle. Now, when you focus on something, you tend to get what you're looking for. And so now feel like clarity has been evolved into I know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, where I'm going, right? Which is the result of a number of the posts that you reflected back to me today. Um, Intimacy was selected because I feel like that is a struggle that I have experienced on a multitude of levels within my life. And from the business side of things, that looked like me creating very passive streams of income with my teaching. Now, that was meant originally to be impact, right? I can teach more people if they can watch my videos whenever they want. And if I create a scenario wherein they pay just a little bit and get access to a lot, you get a lot of people in there, et cetera. And we've always tried to keep a live support component within the Mobile Bar Academy so that people felt supported and like they had access to a real human. But it became obvious to me that a lot of that was one way. They felt very intimately connected with me, and I felt very lost and alone as to like, what does the industry need from me? I
Mm.
feel like I've talked and taught all the things, and like, what's left? And so I needed a feedback loop, and that's what intimacy is, right? Is when you have
Yeah.
real conversations with real people, and you have real connection, you have real investment in each other. And so my decision making for like how I move forward with 2025, we're intimacy led. So when someone sends an email, um, we take time to actually like respond thoughtfully. Not that we never did, but it might have like we go the extra mile now than
Mm.
we might have prior. Within my programs, we have check in and check outs every week, and we personally respond to like this is what I plan to do for the week. We're responding. This is what I did and accomplished. We're pushing back. Well done. Celebrate this. We're excited. But also like what held you back here? Like, why did this happen? Right. Um, so we're just looking for every opportunity to evoke emotion, create relationships, and be here. And I think ultimately intimacy is scary because it gives you an opportunity to be hurt and disappointed and hear things you don't necessarily want to hear. And have to have the hard conversations. And in a time where it's all AI and where the media is trying to divide and conquer, the intimacy is what's going to solve that. It's going to create depth. It's going to create opportunities for people to see people outside of a number of things, their job, their political affiliation, like whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
I noticed you had gotten into, we don't need to get into specifics, but I noticed you had gotten into a conversation with somebody on social media about their political or beliefs. And is the intimacy part and responding and engaging? I was curious to know why you were engaging. And is this part, like the intimacy part of it, where you felt you needed to defend yourself or defend, because you didn't have to, right? Anybody that knows you or knows who you stand for probably wouldn't think twice if you didn't say anything.
Yeah, totally. And honestly, in that particular situation, I do know that person, and I needed them to know that like I could not be preached at, you know, and
Yeah.
like I didn't expect her to respond. Like if you read it the first few times, I'm like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Like we don't need
Yep.
to have this conversation. Um, I want
And
to make,
I think because you, sorry to interrupt, but I think because you knew her, I didn't know that till I got down farther, but because you knew
yeah.
her, I think you came off very, very quickly. You're like, get out of here. Like, we don't need you. And I didn't connect the dots until the bottom, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, she knows her.
Yeah. So, okay, with intimate, and this is actually a really important concept that
Mhm.
within intimacy, but then within there's a concept that I have worked with over the past year that is judgment versus discernment. Discernment is the clarity of knowing what's for you and what's not for you. And I have gotten real good at creating boundaries around knowing what's for me and what's not, and making it very clear when something is not for me. So, intimacy does not mean I need to make space for everyone. And there are lots of spaces where people get lots of airtime, and I am not a love and light girly. I am just as likely to hold space for you and have deep and intimate conversations and allow you freedom to like cry. And people just tend to cry around me because I allow people the space to be who they are without judgment.
Yeah.
But I will just as quickly cut you down if I have determined that what you were trying to take and put in my space is not for me. And it does not have to be you like you just can turn around and walk away. But if you want to stay here, like we fight, right? And it's I don't expect to change her mind. And she obviously didn't expect to change my mind, but she was in my space.
Yes.
That was my post. Those
Yes.
are they're my friends, family, and colleagues who are reading that. And that's why I said, get out of here with that. Right. And for
Yeah.
those that I'm allies to, I fight equally as hard for them. I'm not here to say all ideas are good ideas and all opinions are good opinions. I don't have judgment, I have discernment.
It's natural for us to not to want to rock the boat, right? Especially if it's especially if it's business related. But you know, I applauded your stance, and I like it was you did it very respectfully, and I a lot of times when I see that, especially if it's from a small business, I'm like, oh, ick, yeah, don't do that. Um, but I didn't feel that way after reading the entire post. Oh,
I'm a believer that you can't turn, if you can't turn anyone off, you can't turn anyone on. And so by being very clear about who I am, my stances on things,
yeah,
I will make some people feel very safe. And so the other person who commented, April, her and her wife are raving fans. And I adore them, I support them. How would I have felt? And I just let that person say what she said to her. What kind of ally would I have been if I allowed that to stand as though, oh, well, she's got her opinion, we'll just let her be? No, ma'am. Your opinion is harmful. Your
yeah,
opinion is reductive. Your opinion is mean. And so I felt zero remorse. I was not scared even a little bit that I would have a potential client or colleague read that and make a judgment. Please do. Please
yeah,
know
yeah.
where my boundaries are and where you'll meet my sword.
We saw it. So, Sarah, you're 8 years into this, and you've got your plan for 2025. It's all about intimacy this year. Are you willing to share with us what you have for like a 5 year plan? Like, what's the big vision for you?
Yeah, so if I have a big vision, so I don't like being like 5 year, 10-year goals,
Yeah.
but I love words. Words carry a vibration and they make it very easy to focus on a thing, right? So this year, intimacy is my word. Everything I do is going to have, okay, is this building intimacy? Is this
Hmm.
serving my word, right? My word for the longer picture is impact. And that might look like taking advantage of more opportunities to speak in spaces I've never spoken in. Last year, that looked like being a part of the Cayuga Forum. It's sending additional emails to say, hey, do you need speakers or mentors in your entrepreneurship pod or at your conference? Or can I host a workshop at your co-working space to your members? It might look like inquiring with Wedding MBA. Do you need speakers? Things that are outside my comfort zone, but will give me more of a platform to, you know, put more medicine into the world. Taking a crack at writing a book, long form content when it's written, I've found is a real challenge for me. I love writing, but to take a single concept and flesh it out over hundreds of pages has just that, and I'm not opposed to the challenge, but I think it will is going to take me longer than I thought it was going to take me because like I don't struggle with words, and I don't struggle with creating structure. So why it's a challenge, I don't know, but it's a new one. And then more one-on-one clients, again, that we get to go deeper when we're one-on-one. Um, and just saying yes to things that kind of are in alignment with what I know about myself and the impact that I want to have. I mean, again, when people work with me, I want them to walk away feeling more confident, more competent, and more capable. And if I can just do that for more people, that's a win.
Well, I know you've got a great reputation in the industry. Everybody that works with you has uh, nothing but great things to say. And I spoke with Michelle up at the Tipsy Trailer in Washington a couple days ago, and Michelle and I talked about you for a minute, and just nothing but great things to say. And so you're making a huge impact all the way around, especially in this industry, small businesses and the mobile bars. Where can people find you if they don't know?
Yeah. I live at mobilebevpros.com. You can reach me at hello@mobilebevpros.com. If you're not a mobile bar, but you're looking for a little of the medicine that I chatted about today, I have my own domain. It's Sarah M as in Mary Murphy.com. It's my middle initial, Sarah M at murphy.com, and you can reach me there. We have an amazing podcast if you haven't listened to it but you're a big fan, the Mobile Bev Pros podcast. And then Dawn and I have a podcast called Crowns and Chaos, and that one's my favorite. It is tangentially business related, but more so on kind of that squishier mindset, psychology side of things. If you're a love and light girly, you won't like it. We are trying to be the antidote to love and light over there.
Well, thank you for coming on, chatting
Yeah,
with me today, Sarah.
this is fun.
My word for this year, and that I've never done that. It's funny that you brought that up, that you've got words through the year that you like to focus on. So this year um, was just networking, and over the years, I've always admired Boyd, my business partner, about his ability to network and remember faces, and he'll remember the guy he sat next to 4 years ago at one of the conferences and be like, oh, that's the guy from this and this and this. I don't know what you're talking about. But I'm more introverted, and I'm like the behind the scenes guy that likes to organize things, and I can keep stuff, I can keep things moving. And my word is networking this year. And so doing the more the like long form content and actually reaching out to our customers, engaging them and talking to them and finding out what they need and building those relationships is my goal. So um, it's all kind of fit this
I love that.
conversation.
We'll
Yeah.
have to circle up next year again, same time, and see how we both did.
Yeah. Yep. Are you going to be at any of the conferences? You mentioned the Wedding MBA, which we might be at this year. Are you going to any of the other conferences like Cater Source or what's the nightclub and bar? I think it's the bar and restaurant now. I think that's what it's called.
I've never done any of the conferences.
Okay.
And so like the answer isn't necessarily no. I just haven't really ever looked into it. I haven't not sure how like a business coach really kind of works the vendor spaces there. Um, but potentially, maybe.
Yeah. I think it'd be a good opportunity for, I mean, even just giving, being one of the presenters for all the sessions
That I
and
would love. I
speaking.
did try.
Yeah.
I've tried twice now to get on the list. Even Roy Porter even put in a good word for me with Wedding MBA, but it just I've never heard anything back. So I'm gonna keep trying though.
Yeah. I've met Roy a couple times. He's come up to our booth a couple times at the, I think the Wedding MBA that he goes to every year.
Yeah. He
Yep.
also does Cater Source. He's intimately like involved in that.
Oh, maybe it's that one. Maybe it is that one. So
He does both,
a few
but
times. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Sarah. I appreciate all the time for me
and let me
to.
know if there's anything I can do for you guys.
Yeah.
We're, obviously big cold break fans over here.
All right.
Thanks for your time.
Yep. Thanks, Sarah.